listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion has gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. I'm Matt Dillahunty, and this week I'm joined by Jen Peoples, who just informed me that she hasn't been on the show in almost 4 months.
Yeah.
So, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's probably my fault. There's some shuffling around with the schedule that happens, and we're going to see about making some changes. But also, I'm going to be gone most of the month of April, so hopefully anybody who got skipped can come in and fill in and do extra weeks in April while I'm out. There is a lot going on. This is a live public access television program sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. You can find out more about the ACA by visiting our website, www.atheist-community.org. We'll have the telephone number for you shortly. This is a live call-in show where we take calls from, we would prefer, theistic calls, but it's not necessarily limited to that. Have discussions about, tell us what you believe and why, or just, general discussions about atheism, religious issues, etc. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a couple of podcasts, which have been on hiatus while I moved from North Austin to South Austin. They should be returning in the next week, although I will warn the nonprofits listeners that there may not be a live stream associated with nonprofits right away. We're having some internet issues, but we're still going to do the show and record it and post it. That's only going to affect 50 people or so who are tuning in live. And same's true for Godless Bitches. I don't know exactly what date. Beth and Jen and Linnea and Tracy are planning on starting back up, but it should be soon now that we're all rewired for podcasting. After this program's over, anybody who wants to is welcome to join us for dinner at El Arroyo. They'll have the address up at the bottom of the screen. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to our events. You don't have to be a member to attend, but if you come down to preach, proselytize, provoke, punch, piss off, poke at, whatever, just pick up the phone and give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you that way. There's a bunch of events coming up. My mic's out? Okay.
Oh.
We tested it beforehand.
Yeah.
Live television.
Oh, no.
Oh, and hey, it's wired through my shirt. So, all that stuff that I just said, I'm not going to repeat it. Hopefully there was enough carryover on Jen's mic. It's wired through my shirt. Welcome to Live TV. There's a bunch of events coming up. I wanted to make sure I point out that membership renewal for the ACA is available. You can find out more information at the ACA website. We have weekly meetings it was at Romeo's. Now it's, where did we change it to?
I think that's still kind of in flux right
It
now.
was at Schlotsky's. It may be in flux. Check the meetup and check the website.
A new site for that.
And there's a Thursday happy hour at the Dog and Duck, beginning around 7 o'clock or so. You can drop by there. That's 17th and Guadalupe. I'm completely frazzled right now, and you can't even respond because I've stolen your microphone. But the big events that are coming up, obviously the Reason Rally, potentially the biggest gathering of non-believers in the history of the United States, is coming up in March. And I'm hoping to maybe be able to get Dave Silverman or one of the other organizers on very soon to talk about that event and make sure people are aware of it. Also, I was supposed to have somebody calling in at the top of the show, but was unable to. The Imagine No Religion 2 conference in Kamloops, British Columbia is May 18th through 20th. We were going to talk a little bit about what's going on there. Some of the speakers, you can go to imaginenoreligion2.com for more information. But Lawrence Krauss, P.Z. Myers, Joyce Arthur, Miriam Namazi, Christopher DiCarlo, Desiree Schell, Dr. Andy Thompson, Seth Andrews, August Berkshire, David Eberth, me. I'll be there giving a talk, and I can't talk and read sign language. Just say what you want to say. It's live TV.
Okay, go ahead, go back to your...
Yes, I can go back to my mic, and you can have yours.
I'll plug mine back.
That's easy. So I'll be giving a talk at Imagine No Religion 2, and I'll be doing a joint debate.
It's flopped down your shirt there, so you know.
All right, it's on, I'm assuming. Can we just like restart? We've wasted like 5 minutes. Anyway, I'll be there doing a debate with Krista Carlo. I've also got a couple debates coming up in April. There's a joint debate with J.T. Eberhard and some others that I'll try and promote on my Facebook page, so you can go there and follow. We'll get to calls here in just a second, but there's been a ton of email that's come in. Some of it we can't possibly answer all of it, and if you want to email us, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-hosts, some of the people behind the scenes. There's a lot coming in, and somebody actually asked us to talk about something that I have actually recorded several videos that were supposed to be posted to YouTube, but I have not actually got around to doing that. And that's this issue about contraception in the United States right now. I recorded one right off the bat when the president initially announced his policy requiring employers to provide contraception, and I recorded one personally. It wasn't an ACA thing. It wasn't an atheist thing. It was just a little annoying about the kind of the kerfluffle from some of the Catholics and other religious organizations. And initially there was a dance about who was going to pay for it, which I found really absurd, because in the end the employer's going to pay for it no matter what. They're either going to pay for it directly, or they're going to give their employers more money, or they're going to lose employees, or they give the employees more money, or they're going to lose employees, or they have to pay through the insurance companies and the middleman. There's no way of avoiding paying for it.
Well, and actually, it's a net benefit to the employer or whoever's paying for the insurance, because contraception coverage actually, I think there was an analysis that was published recently that said that it's actually a net benefit to the employer of about $100 per person, because you avoid a lot of medical problems and the costs of unintended pregnancies.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why the insurance companies didn't have too much of a problem about saying, yeah, we'll pay for this. It saves us money in the long run. It's smart. It saves lives. It saves money. It's a good thing. I wasn't happy when the president worked out a compromise on behalf of the Catholic Church, because I don't think we should be compromising there on matters of health care. I don't think we should be kowtowing to religious organizations, false claims, actually. But I was at least happy that the end result, the ultimate result of making sure that this was available without a copay and stuff, was there. But that's kind of my personal political take on this. My take as the host of the show comes down to this. This has turned into a huge deal. And even after the compromise, people are crying that this is foul. This runs afoul of religious liberties. This is not a religious liberty issue at all. That is a flat-out lie. We have now the Blunt Amendment, which has come out, which basically allows any employer, whether it's a religious organization or not, to opt out of providing health care, almost any health care, merely if they have a moral or religious objection to it. Now, that is a Mack truck through health care that's just unbelievable, because now if your employer believes that your illness is the result of God's will and he shouldn't have to pay for it, or they shouldn't have to pay for it, then that's the case. It allows them to just use their religion to single out single people, gay people, whatever, pick it, immigrants. Got an STD, you shouldn't have been promiscuous, you should have saved yourself for marriage, and therefore we're not going to pay for your health care. Any number of little, this loophole is so big that I just found it absolutely absurd. And Rush Limbaugh has gone off the deep end for days, demonstrating how little he understands contraception, because he was talking about a Georgetown law student who, according to Limbaugh, was having so much sex that she was going broke buying birth control pills. And as others have pointed out, the number of birth control pills you take as a woman is not affected in any way by how much sex you're having.
Yeah.
You could not have any sex, or you could have sex 10 times a day and still take the same number of pills. So you're an idiot, Limbaugh, but we already knew that. Maybe he's lonely, though, because one of his suggestions was that if he was going to have to pay for people's contraception, that they should film it so that he can sit around and watch it.
Yeah.
Now, there's some good family values for you. By the way, I have no objection to porn, but I think most of Limbaugh's listeners probably do.
Yeah.
And yet this is the guy that they're supporting. But here's the thing. Even if this was about religious freedom, let's grant for a moment that this is actually an issue of religious freedom. The religious organizations are still wrong, because now their position in that scenario is that the religious opinions of the corporation that owns the company trump the religious opinions and religious rights and religious liberties of their employees, and that is simply wrong. Nobody's health care benefits should be held hostage to the religious convictions of their employer. I'm glad that religious organizations run hospitals, universities, charities, things like that. I would prefer that they didn't, but I mean, it's a service that they provide. But these are secular services that are not part of their religion. This is something that they do, and they do it in part because they've run tax-free roughshod across throughout history, and so their coffers are full, and they can provide these services. And great, you know, good for you. But if you're going to run a service that is not a part of your religion, that's actually a secular service to the community, you have to follow the law. And if your religion prevents you from handing out prescriptions that have been that come from a doctor, an authorized medical provider, you shouldn't be a pharmacist. And if your religion prevents you from providing health care to your employees because of your religious conviction, you shouldn't be running that business. And the compromise that should have been made in this case was to say, hey, guess what? You're running a hospital, you're running a university, you're running a charity. These are not religious endeavors, and you're going to follow the law, or you can get out of that business. It's not an easy situation. You know, it's not like we can just build a new hospital right off the bat. We may be able to force them to sell it. These are unpopular ideas, but I find it absolutely disgusting that people are using their religious opinion as a weapon to do something stupid. If your religion has you in opposition to contraception, you're on the wrong side of reality. It saves lives and it saves money. But if your religion has you in opposition to both abortion and contraception, you need a serious reality check to get rid of that cognitive dissonance. This has gone far enough.
Yeah. Well, and I will also point out that this is an example of, yet again, religious organizations trying to dictate public policy in this country.
Yeah.
It's not the first time that's happened, and every other time it's happened, it's been a disaster. I'll give you an example. Don't ask, don't tell. That was a religiously inspired policy whose aim was actually to prevent gay people from serving in the military. Cost us billions and billions of dollars. Thousands of qualified service members were discharged as a result of it. And all because some people's religious sensibilities were offended.
Yep.
Prior to that, prohibition. Again, we had people, because of religious views, dictating what adults could do, what they could consume, put in their body, all because, you know, it violated their religious sensibilities.
Yeah, it's already a little annoying, because it kind of runs around. I don't think it quite gets around HIPAA laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it kind of does, because the only people who should even know what medication I'm on are me and my doctor.
Yeah.
Now, because we have, you know, insurance companies that have to end up paying for this, they end up knowing it. But I find it annoying, because I've had the insurance companies call me to talk about getting me other care providers and
Right.
other alternatives. You know, this is between me and my doctor. We're already paying you for this service. You're making money hand over fist. But how dare you, as an employer, try to impose your, you know, religious opinions on the people that are working for you? You're not a doctor. Stop pretending. But anyway, we've got calls lined up, and what with the outage of the microphone, we're a bit behind schedule. So we'll go ahead and get started with Clint in Atlanta. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. That's kind of loud.
Oh, sorry about
No,
that.
not your fault. I'm telling the guys in the booth.
I was going to say, I don't know what I would do about that.
You could whisper.
Microwave. Well, I'm a big fan of the show. I'm very new to your show. I had. Oh, can you still hear me?
I can hear you fine, thanks.
Okay. And so I started going to church when I was about 15. I'm 24 now. When I hit about 18, 19 years old, I began to question things. I've always done that. Very curious about things. Whenever people would say, let's pray over our food, let's bless this food, that never made sense to me.
Yeah, I mean...
why are we blessing this food, and how is this food going to be any better when it enters our body? Shouldn't we be just saying, hey, thanks for making this food? Something that was very strange, about the time when Bush and Kerry were in the election in '04, I was not a Bush supporter. I did not like him. That's my political stance, and that was looked down on in the church, and I got upset about that. So I realized that there's definitely so apparently if you're going to be a Christian, you got to be this way, you got to think this way. And so fast forward, this year, within the last month, I've just finally looking at all these things that we've all agreed upon in Christianity. And, it's funny how you talk about contraception. Well, I'm going into the healthcare field. I'm a second-year chiropractic student. And so, we've taken embryology, we've taken, a full year of human anatomy. We understand a lot of the implications of removing proper health care, proper sanitation, and what that's done throughout history. If you go back to the 3rd and 4th century, you can, that time in history, the church took over Europe and that part of the world, and what did they do? They took out everything that kept, people healthy, that kept them clean, because they looked at them as dirty, because they, because it permitted, this and permitted that. And so they removed all that. They removed sanitation and garbage collection. I mean, come on, people. And so today, they want to tell you what you need to do and how you need to live your life, and we want to control that so that we can make ourselves feel more holy. We're going to make that a law because we want to make that the example. Well, okay, let's make logic out of this. If we're Christians and we want people to come to Christ, why are we going to take away the human rights that they are due? Why are we taking that away? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And so,
well, it falls in line with a particular type of, granted, I don't know exactly what church you were in, but there are fundamentalist organizations where this is a big deal. I mean, you see it with even some of the presidential candidates, which always shocks me that we're talking about, things like contraception. But I can't say what their motivations are, but I can say that the effects of a lot of their policies serves to punish women, and it serves to actually enforce or attempt to enforce a bunch of, I don't even really want to say biblical ideas about sex and marriage and things like that, because they're still reading into it quite a bit. But it is from within their fundamentalist viewpoint, they're enforcing what they believe God wants them to do, that sex is for marriage. And so they set up these roadblocks because, you can listen, not to pick on any individual, but if you've heard Santorum talk in recent time, he thinks contraception is a license for people to screw. That's his take on it, and that is directly in opposition to what he thinks God wants, and therefore he thinks he is, anointed by God to go and change the law for everybody else. So there is, I don't even know if, I almost said, there is a legitimate, Christian argument. I don't even know how legitimate it is. I just know that it was one that I used to accept. But it's, a lot of it depends on which church tradition you're coming from. And what baffles me is that in this case, and not to keep hammering on Santorum, this is more about religious issues. What I'm seeing is that somebody who's a Catholic, I've started actually calling them Roman Baptists, because some of these Catholics have, they're still Catholics, but they sure sound a lot like the Southern Baptists I grew up with. So I'm a big fan of Roman Baptists as a new tag for them.
I'm going to have to use that. Well, that kind of leads into the next thing. I'll get right to it. It's when I started looking at talking about just these religious issues. Whether it's about prayer, whether it's about just kind of talking about more Christian practices in general. If you look at prayer, I realized something, and this is as I'm seeking out my faith and trying to understand where I'm at. I'm still not completely there yet. I'm not fully sure what I believe and where it falls, but I'm realizing that when we pray, the only change that happens, the only thing that ends up changing through prayer is when we believe and when we have faith in something. So my question was, well, where does God come into play? Because we choose to believe something, and whenever we believe in something, no matter what it is, our lives change. It's like our lives change around it because we have faith in something, and now our actions are going to change because we think a different way. Well, I can put my faith in anything, and it doesn't matter what it is. I could put my faith in a jug of milk, which I'm stealing from a really clever YouTube video.
Yep.
You know, I could put my faith in a jug of milk, and I could believe that that jug of milk is going to change my life. Well, if I do that, I'm going to change accordingly, and my faith is going to, actions will come from that. So if I believe in the Bible or whatever book, I know that my life is going to change. Now, if I believe that, if I believe that I'm held together by something that is self-healing and self-correcting, if I believe that that's how my body works, because, like a healing wound, a healing bone, your organs get remade, once a year, anywhere from, 6 months to 2 or 3 years, 7 months, and you got new bones, you got a whole new body. So that happens. Now, I believe that about the body, but does that mean that, it's a miracle? I've been paying attention to things like just things that make up our body, things that hold everything together. Well, I've been reading about how matter really, how matter is really non-existent. What we believe to be, what we know about matter, like matter is energy, fluctuations of energy, in one given place at one given time. And you can't measure, we get a snapshot of something. And so we know that everything that we see, we can be sure that it's at least made up of energy.
So Clint, I think we've addressed 36 topics at this point. And I'm wondering if we can kind of narrow down to, what it is you either called in to ask or talk about specific. I mean, they're interesting ideas. The thing is that when I find people who are searching, as you are, searching for a better understanding of reality, searching where their religion might fit in, what it is that they do and don't believe, when you start addressing a ton of subjects at once and all of these possibilities and everything, it does, give a good feel for, how big the universe is and how little we know. But it can also serve to actually really muddy up the topic. So since we're limited on time, if you can kind of get to where you were going.
Well, I actually just, with that, I wanted to bring it down kind of to the point right there. It was, I feel that that most people, I can really only speak for Christians, I can't speak for other believers, but that we have, really over-religiousized and over-spiritualized what we think God is. And, I do believe that there is, I do believe that there is something that holds me together. I tend to think, the energy that, that fills up the universe, I think sometimes it's like we can't understand it, but we know that, we know how energy works through physics, and that kind of energy, that's what I'm talking about. And so we give it a name, like I feel like we give it God, that's what we call it. And so, I don't know,
I'd
what
certainly
you guys think about that.
I would certainly agree that people often slap the God label on things that they don't understand. I mean, that's just a given. My question is, and I realize that you're still in the searching process, but given everything that you've said, what reason do you have to actually believe it all?
I think because throughout my whole life, I've had a lot of moments where something happens that is so outside of so outside of my understanding. When I am around somebody, I can ask them, I'll feel sad, or I'll feel a very, very specific emotion, or I'll see a picture in my head, whether it's something good or something bad. For instance, I sat next to a friend or a married couple, and I saw a picture in my head of just a couple fighting, and I asked them, I engaged them in conversation and got around to asking them if they were fighting, and they said that they have been for the last few months, and it's been getting really bad. That's one example of this thing that I've had going on for years. And then
Okay,
another thing
hang on, Clint.
several.
Clint,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Before we get to another thing, and I know you want to chime in,
Yeah.
I'm going to say something, and then Jen wants to go, and that is, okay, even assuming that your story is accurate and that you did get something, some feeling or some premonition, and it did come, I don't know, not from the fact that every married couple is going to fight.
Sure.
What justification do you have for thinking that this comes from a God? If it's beyond your comprehension, if you don't understand it, if even further we acknowledge that this is a rather trivial thing, I don't know what justification there is for putting God on that. And I know Jen wanted to add something.
Yeah, this whole idea that you picked up on the fact that there was some kind of conflict between those two, that's a very common human skill. We're really good at figuring out, something's wrong with this person. It's called empathy. It's one of the first things we learn about when we're kids. And I understand that you want to attribute that to some higher thing there, but there's really no justification for that. So I'm wondering, you say you don't understand it, but it's pretty well understood.
Well, the thing is, I don't necessarily attribute it to God like I used to. I did very, just very blindly, because that's, the community that I was a part of. That's
Sure.
where I felt I belonged, and that's what I felt I believed. But now I don't necessarily, I don't really know that I attribute that to what we think of as God. I'm not sure at this point, and so I'm searching and trying to figure it out.
That's an entirely fair position to be in. I'd point out that Jen's right about empathy. We're also extremely good about body language. You could have picked up on any number of things. Yeah. It could have been a lucky guess. It could have been. There could be countless explanations for this. Not the least of which that I don't know any married couples that don't fight on occasion. And maybe you caught them at a particularly bad time when it was obvious that they'd been fighting. More often. People fight. I've been married since October. Beth and I have been together for 3 years and some change. I can tell what kind of mood she's in really easily. I'm not psychic, and there's no God telling me.
Right.
We're pretty good at kind of putting ourselves in somebody else's position. We're not perfect at it, and figuring out, hey, something's a little off here, or you don't have to necessarily make a sad, pouty face for somebody to know that something's not quite right.
Well, and if you think about it, throughout human evolution, what animal on the planet has been the biggest threat to a human?
Another human.
Another human.
Yeah.
We are always our own worst enemies, and so particularly reading negative emotions in other humans is something we're very, very good at. Our entire survival as a species depended on that. And so,
and I don't have to read the facial expressions of a bear to know that I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the second I see a bear, I might be in some trouble.
The silhouette of bear in
and
the woods.
When I learned how much that how perceptive we are, we can pick up, we can tell when someone's in the room if our eyes are shut or if we're about to sleep, we can tell someone's there. So I mean that's it's not supernatural. That's just something we all have the ability for.
Right.
So that's why I've learned an incredible amount, and I'm at where I'm at for a reason. But anyway, well, I just wanted to put that in front of you guys and see what you thought, and just kind of get your opinion. I think I am kind of leaning in this direction, really kind of shedding my beliefs quite a bit, but
well, keep questioning.
We'll have to see where time goes. I'm still searching.
Yeah, keep questioning, keep looking for answers. Anything that and by the way, if you come across something that you don't have an explanation for, look around, see if you can find an explanation. And if you think you've found an explanation, have some other people check it out and see if that explanation actually holds water. But if you can't find an explanation, then that's the category of I don't know. Maybe we can find out later. Maybe somebody else knows. But it's never. You're never justified for just saying, "Oh, this is such an amazing coincidence. It's too amazing to be a coincidence. This is so amazingly unexplained that it must come from a supernatural source." There can be no justification, no intellectual justification for making that leap. But
Absolutely. I'm a searcher and always will be. So thank you guys very much.
Good for you.
sure. Thanks,
Thank you.
Clint. All right. As a reminder, once the show's over, people involved in the show will be going to El Arroyo. I'm sure they'll put the number up on the screen. I forget to announce it 10 times a show like I'm contractually obligated to do, but I'll try and do a little bit better today. We've got Jonathan in Arlington. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thanks
Hi.
for waiting.
This is my third time calling, second time talking to you, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
The topic is unfalsifiable God, unfalsifiable soul, and happiness. And I'll try to be brief, since, Matt, you're familiar with what I was talking about probably about a month ago. Where we left off was, obviously I believe that one should believe in unfalsifiable God if it indeed makes them happy. And where we left off was, you said, I asked you what was the problem with that, and you said, well, the harm it could cause is that, well, essentially, I mean, I don't care about happiness. I mean, I don't care about the truth, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I took exception to that because I feel like I do care about the truth. So
Well, you're wrong.
So I told you I would think about that. And I've thought about it, and I think you're a little bit off when you say I don't care about the truth. I think a more accurate assessment would be not that I don't care about the truth, because I think there are different levels of caring. I don't think it's either I care or don't care.
Yeah, and my position is that your level of caring about the truth is insufficient.
Well, what I would say is that I'm just more willing to risk having an untrue belief.
Yeah, it's called gullibility.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be insulting. I mean, I realize that people are going to take it that way. The thing is, if you actually care about whether or not something's true, then one of the primary things is to say, I'm no longer willing to simply believe something because it feels right or feels good, because I understand that I can be fooled and I can be wrong. And so I need to take steps to try and find out what the actual answer is. And if I'm unable to find the answer, as I was just explaining to the last caller, I'm in a position of I don't know. I'm not justified in claiming that my lack of understanding or my inability to find a better answer justifies a God answer or anything like that.
But if we make assumptions, and I've heard it on the show, we make assumptions that pleasure is preferable to pain, life is preferable to death. If pleasure truly is preferable to pain, and I'm talking about unfalsifiable God and unfalsifiable soul, that's something that to say that you're going to search for the truth, neither you or I could search for that truth, because by definition, there is no truth to search for, because you can't get there.
Yeah, if you're asserting that it is necessarily unfalsifiable, then yes, it's a dead end. And I don't know why you're wasting any more time on it.
What I'm arguing for is the unfalsifiable God, so I want to stick to that God.
Well, why I'm asserting, okay, here's the thing. If you're asserting that you only want to talk about an unfalsifiable God, there's no point in continuing the discussion, because I have zero interest in that. It is an intellectually vapid exercise.
Well, just because you have no interest, I mean, philosophers do things or discuss things that many people don't have interest in, but they discuss it philosophically.
Sure, but I care about truth, and if you set up
not something of interest.
No, I care about truth, and if you're going to set up something that cannot be demonstrated to be true, then you're just wasting my time.
Okay, you say I'm wasting your time, but this is a path that many believers go through. They go from a fundamental belief to atheism. It's a path. And right now, somebody in the middle like myself, it comes down to a God that's unfalsifiable. That's the dead middle that I'm at. And I'm asking a question of why should I not believe it so I can step over. So even though you might not be interested for your sake because it doesn't make any difference to you, it makes a whole lot of difference to me and a lot of other people. So when I ask the question... I
understand. What I'm saying is, I don't know how many other ways I can explain. I'd love to come up with a different explanation of... You seem to understand that if the God proposition is unfalsifiable, that you cannot be rationally justified in believing that it's true, correct?
No, I believe you can be justified.
No. Rationally justified requires falsification or falsifiability.
By what definition? Is that something that I could look up?
Well, you could start by reading some Karl Popper on the philosophy of science. But the big point here is that, let's see if I can cut this down. If it's not falsifiable, if this is not something you can demonstrate, how can you be justified in believing it?
The same way I could be justified in eating I ate an orange this morning. The same way I was justified in eating an orange. open the fridge and ask, should I eat an orange? I like the taste of an orange, so it's logically for me to say that I should eat an orange. That's why I'm justified.
You're eating an orange is an actual testable. Well, now that it's in the past, I can't go back and test it. But I mean, from your perspective, you ate an orange because you liked it. But are you saying that the orange that there's some possibility the orange didn't exist?
No. I'm using an example of preference.
Yeah, I don't care about preference. I care about truth. Your personal preference.
I'm saying what justified is that I want to do it.
No. I understand that you. Okay, you're saying this is my personal preference. I care more about my personal preference than whether something's factually true. Therefore, I am justified by my personal preference. And I'm saying, when we're talking about whether or not something's real, your personal preference is irrelevant. The truth is not impacted in any way by how strongly you believe something or how much you like something. It's simply not.
But the truth is on neither of our sides. You as an atheist and me as a theist, the truth is not on any of our sides. You're just not willing to accept it.
How is the truth not on either side? How is the truth not on either side of a binary proposition? Either there is a God or there's not, correct?
But you said you...
Answer the question. Either there is a God or there's not, correct?
Correct. But you didn't say you believe there's no God. You just said you don't hold the belief. So you're not believing. I don't know if you have strong atheism, but the typical atheist is not going to say, I believe there is no God. They're just going to say, I don't hold the belief that there is a God.
Sure, and I'm fine with both of those. But if you believe that either there's a God or there's not,
correct,
then either your position of theism is true or false.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
That's a truth proposition, not a preference proposition. It's not like I like the taste of oranges. What you're arguing when you talk about your preference for oranges is like, well, I don't know whether there's a God or not, but I prefer this God to this other God.
No, I'm saying I can choose to believe. Belief is a choice.
Belief is not a choice.
No,
belief is not a choice in any simple sense. Can you choose to believe that you can fly?
Belief, in my opinion, belief is a choice. Belief.
No.
Your opinion, once again, isn't relevant. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, the question was, can you choose to believe that you can fly?
Yeah, you can choose.
Okay.
Somebody can choose to believe it, but if they try, they'll die.
So if you test that, you'll find out, in fact, you cannot fly.
This is something we're not actually going to solve here about belief being a choice. I am firmly in the camp that belief is not a choice.
Yeah.
That belief, when we say I believe something, that means you accept that this proposition is true. That means that you are convinced. Now, you can be convinced for good reasons or bad reasons. You can be convinced to varying degrees of certainty. But you don't ever simply make a conscious choice to be convinced. You can certainly make a conscious choice to act as if you're convinced because you're convinced of some benefit to acting as if you're convinced. But at a foundational level, beliefs aren't choices.
I agree that belief is a matter of being convinced. Passive belief is what you're talking about, where you're being convinced by some external source. That's passive belief, where you're not doing anything. What I'm talking about is active belief. I am being convinced, but I am the convincer. See, I'm being convinced from within.
No.
Are you telling me it's not possible for me for somebody to convince themselves?
No, that's not exactly what I'm saying at all.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm convincing myself, so I am being convinced.
Sure. Why would you want to convince yourself of something if you don't know that it's true?
Because of what I said before. It makes me happy. The same reason why I choose to eat an orange.
Sure. And now we're back to where we were a month ago, and we've wasted more time on this show. You don't care as much about the truth as you do about what feels good to you.
And my question is, what harm am I causing by doing that? At the end of the day, what's going to happen to me that's harmful by what I'm doing right now?
Well, I don't know. I'd say the first thing is you're not going to find out whether or not your proposition's true. But I don't know what decisions you're going to make based on your personal preference.
Neither are you. You're not going to find out whether or not there's a God, whether that proposition is true as well. Neither one of us are going to find out whether that proposition is true or not.
No. My position doesn't prevent me from continuing to seek the truth. Yours does.
We're talking about unfalsifiable God. So in that sense, none of us is going to find out whether that proposition is true. I'm sticking to that guy because you always ask what God do you believe in.
Yeah, but I don't
believe
believe that the God proposition is unfalsifiable. That's an unjust assertion that you're making.
I'm not asking you to believe that the God proposition is unfalsifiable. I'm saying I believe in unfalsifiable God.
And I'm saying I don't care.
My God.
And I'm saying I don't care. What point is there in believing in something that's unfalsifiable? And if you're just going to come back with, well, I like doing it, well, good for you. But it has nothing to do with truth.
I'm not asking you to agree with what I call God. You asked me, or you asked your viewers to determine or to declare what God they believe in, and that's all I did.
Sure.
You said, what's the point of believing in it? Well, I mean, that's another topic.
No, it's the only topic I care about. It's the only topic I care about. Once you have stated that you believe in an unfalsifiable God, my question then becomes why. See, it's a two-part question. Tell me what you believe in and why. And so my why question is, why believe in that? And if your best answer is because it feels good, well, good for you. But some of us care about whether or not the proposition is actually true. And the fact that you're talking about an unfalsifiable proposition means that we don't have any truth claim about it.
So at the end of the day, let's just pretend like there's a score to spin.
At the end of the day, I'll be off this call. What? Go ahead.
I didn't know if you hung up on me or not.
No.
Oh,
I will in a minute.
Say there's a score being kept, and whoever has the least untrue beliefs wins.
Yes.
So we both go through our lives. I believe there's an unfalsifiable God. You don't.
Yes.
So let's just say you were right.
Yeah.
And there is no unfalsifiable God. You win. But who's going to ever know? How does that affect your life now and my life now? If my belief
Here's
makes
the
me
thing.
happy,
Here's
your life
the
belief in this makes you happy.
This is what I raised.
At the end of the day, we die and we're unconscious. Nobody knows. What difference does it make?
Okay, first of all, this I raised a month ago or so, last time we talked. I can't tell you exactly what impact your belief has because I don't live your life. But if you think that your beliefs exist in a vacuum and that you can just believe something because you like it and it doesn't affect anything else you believe, that's absurd. All of our beliefs impact the other things that we believe and make us more likely to believe absurdities. And the more absurdities we believe, the more out of tune with reality we are. And the more out of tune with reality are, the more potential harm there is. Now, it may be the case that you believe in some nonsensical God for no good reason, and it never really does you any clear harm.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it was absent of harm. That doesn't mean that it didn't impact any decisions you made. And it doesn't mean that you lived the maximally positive life.
Well, I don't think anyone can assess what's the maximum positive life. I'm just trying to see if there's a direct link to this belief that I have to anything negative happening. Because, like you said, you don't live my life, so you don't know what the ultimate utilitarian belief would be. I don't think anybody can know that. But if I can make a direct link between this and something negative, that's what I want to base it off of. I wanted to see if you can make that link in any way possible. And if you can't, because you don't know my life or you don't know what other things I believe, I understand that.
If I can't, then what?
This specific belief. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I care about now.
And I care about truth.
Okay, so there's nothing direct. There's no direct link to anything negative.
I don't know. I don't know your life. I just told you that. What is it specifically? What is it? Hang on. Apart from unfalsifiable God, tell me what you actually believe. Don't describe that it's unfalsifiable. Tell me what you actually believe.
That's it.
That's a nothing.
Yeah. What do you get from that?
Well, unfalsifiable God. That's not it. I should piggyback that with unfalsifiable soul. So I believe there's an afterlife, some type of afterlife provided by this guy.
Sure.
So,
what kind of afterlife? What is it that you believe about the afterlife?
It's an extension of it's more life. I mean, there's nothing else I could really pin onto it.
Okay, sure. That's actually, to some extent, we can demonstrate that that's not the case. I mean, we can actually assess the truth value of that. We can't get to absolute certainty. We can't go beyond death's door. But what we do know about the brain and what makes you you and your memories and preferences and everything else in the studies that we've done with people with brain damage, all of the evidence points to the conclusion that when you're dead, that there's no you left to continue. And so you're believing in a proposition about an afterlife.
Unfalsifiable soul. An unfalsifiable soul.
You say unfalsifiable one more time, I swear to your God that is nothing, I'll hang up on you.
When you ask me what I believe in, you're saying you could assess something. You can't assess something that's unfalsifiable. That's why I feel like I need to make
Yeah, I can. If it's unfalsifiable, it is unfalsifiable, which means there can be no rational justification for believing it. That is an assessment. It is a pointless waste of time thing.
Jonathan, Jonathan, have you heard the when you say unfalsifiable, then you by definition are saying that there's no evidence for it, correct?
I believe we can't measure the evidence.
Okay, so there's no evidence. So have you heard the saying that which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence?
I've never heard of that, but I mean, I understand it, yeah.
Well,
it's the reason I've almost hung up 12 times since you got on the phone.
It's
really, and I don't, because I'm optimistic that we can actually come to some kind of understanding, but it's incredibly frustrating.
I'm not.
Because we're back.
Do you think there's any evidence that can be provided for the question, should I eat an orange?
Sure. We can actually determine whether or not an orange would be beneficial to you or harmful to you.
Let's pretend like that the orange provides just as much nutrients. I'm not allergic to, I'm not diabetic or anything like that. Let's just say it came down to whether or not I liked it. Can there be evidence whether or not I should eat it? If the health thing is not a question.
If you neutralize everything but opinion, can I find anything other than opinion? What a completely ridiculous, unfair way of narrowing things down.
I just asked a simple question.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You are constructing and eliminating all possibilities that don't fit within what you want to happen. It's the same thing you do when we're talking about questions of truth. You don't care as much about the truth as you care about what your opinion is. And so, yes, I will say to you, Jonathan, if all other factors are equal, and the only determining factor about whether or not you should eat an orange is your personal opinion, then that's all there is. Congratulations, you defined a tautology and wasted an hour.
Well, that and you've discovered how we make dietary choices every day.
I mean, you ask whether or not there are
I'm
ways
not allergic
to
and I want to eat it.
Yeah. It reminds me of in some contentious discussions like on abortion that have taken place, where somebody says, okay, we don't get to include rape cases, we don't get to include these cases, we only get to include this narrow set of cases that make my point easier to defend. Well, I'm not here to make your point easier to defend. I'm here to point out that your position is indefensible.
Well, we set up ground rules all the time that says pleasure is preferable to pain and life is preferable to death. So if I base my argument based on those ground rules, how is that illogical?
Okay. I have actually used those phrases when I'm talking about secular morality, and I say that you can start with those simple beginnings as rules of thumb. That as a general rule, life is generally preferable to death, pleasure is generally preferable to pain, etc. But those aren't absolutes. Pleasure is not always preferable to pain. If I put my hand on the stove and I feel pain, there's a problem in my brain. I need that, pleasure, I need that pain in order to identify me. In order to identify the risk. So it's not a global absolute that pleasure is always preferable to pain. These are generalities that we use and we build from that. And those will come in conflict at some point as well, when your life is so painful and miserable that death may actually become preferable to continuing to live. So you're trying to take generalities, turn them into absolutes, in order to go right back to what we just finished talking about, which is justify that you believe something because it makes you feel good, and that's what you want to care about. You don't want to address these other issues. Because if you did, you could go do some research into what we know about human identity and whether or not there's any good reason to think it's remotely feasible that anything that makes you you survives your death. Because it doesn't.
Like I said, I mean, there they are generalities, but I think that's a good place to start from. Those assumptions, pleasure versus pain, life versus death, I think those are good places to start from.
I agree. That's why I've used them. What I don't do is finish there and then use them to justify my own personal preferences.
But if I start there, I mean, I think in a way, I'm not going to say you don't. I think in a way, I mean, the truth for you it gives you pleasure. To feel like you hold as few false beliefs and as many true beliefs. I think that gives you pleasure.
Yes.
Some reason that gives you pleasure.
Actually,
but I don't do that because it gives me pleasure. Go ahead.
Right.
You don't do it
anytime we feel like we have discovered the answer to something, some truth, yes, that we feel pleasure. There is actually a brain chemical that gives us pleasure when we feel like we've discovered something.
What if everybody doesn't have that chemical? For instance, what if believers, they don't have that chemical when
they do?
They do.
Every human has this.
Well,
you don't think there are different levels of what gives people more pleasure than another? Like, for instance, that might not give me as pleasure as for instance.
Sure. So let's test your hypothesis. Are you saying that my brain chemistry changed in between the time I was a believer and when I was a non-believer?
It could have.
Well, I'm not saying it couldn't have, but I mean, do you think that that's really plausible?
I think it is plausible.
Okay.
Based on what, by the way?
His opinion.
Oh.
That's what we're basing everything on.
Excuse me, because he ate an orange.
So yeah, when I say that I don't, I say I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, and yes, that gives me pleasure. I don't do that because it gives me pleasure, because it doesn't always give me pleasure. Sometimes the truth can be actually kind of painful.
So you would do something that gives you pain?
Well, now you're asking about an action which is separate. But yes,
yes,
in some situations.
No, I really do believe that belief is an action. That's what my argument hinges on. And Matt, you don't agree with that, so it's kind of a dead end.
Yeah, which is what I said 15 minutes ago.
If you think belief is a matter of being convinced, then I think that one
belief
can
is a brain state
and still be convinced.
It is.
Belief is a brain state. The action that you're wanting to call belief is the profession of belief, not belief.
You don't think I can cause my own brain state by convincing myself? You don't think anybody
not
can
in
do
the
that?
simple, not in the simple sense that you're talking about. The process of becoming convinced is more complicated than simply an act of will.
Okay, then we're the disagreement then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unless I don't understand. I don't think you. I mean, that to me that's an opinion. I don't think you guys are scientists. If you say you don't think that you can convince yourself, I take it as a matter of opinion.
No, we're not. We're not scientists. But the thing is, we actually do understand how beliefs are formed, and the fact that this is a brain state. And I don't think you understand that.
Well, the other thing is that I'd encourage you to actually go look at what some of the neurosciences are actually finding out about when decisions are made with respect to when you think you made a decision, because the decision's made before you think you made it. That's just science.
Yep.
But also, look up V.S. Ramachandran. What's
the name?
V.S. Those are the initials, and the last name is Ramachandran. Ramachandran, I think. Some really good talks, including, I think, at the first Imagine No Religion conference, where he talked about a split brain patient where the brain had developed two separate personalities, and one of them was a theist and one of them was an atheist. There's also cases where people's brains and personalities have been reset. They've lost their memories, their personalities have changed. There's big questions we need to address about whether or not that's still the same person and how we view them. What obligations are they still under? There's huge questions about these things. And as long as people like you are more comfortable believing that your identity carries on after death, in spite of these evidences to the contrary, that you as an individual can be reset right now while you're living, I'd say that's a potential harm of your belief, that it inhibits the discovery of what's actually happening. And it can cause you to hold views that may not be in your best interest. But I don't know your whole life, so I don't know. I mean, I know plenty of Christians who are Christians in name only. Oh, yes, I believe, I believe, I believe. And what they go out and do every day doesn't seem to be impacted in the slightest by what Christianity tends to be. But at the end of the day, if they actually believe, that's going to inhibit their ability to find out the answers that Christianity asserts. Now, you're not accepting a full-on, doctrine with a bunch of assertions. You seem to, well, so far we've only been able to narrow down that you believe in an afterlife. But, believing in an afterlife based on personal preference is indistinguishable from believing there's no afterlife based on personal preference. And I don't want to believe either based on personal preference. I want to believe the proposition that is supported by actual evidence. And I don't understand why you would.
Either my position or your position is going to get either one of us any further. To me, we're both at the same level. I don't see how what you're believing is going to get you further, happier, or make you more successful in life than what my position is.
Well,
and if I'm going to cross the line to be, I want to be an atheist, if I want to do that, I need some type of motivation. And if I can't find anything,
no, that's a shifting of the burden of proof.
No.
I don't see why I should.
That's a shifting of the burden of proof. But go ahead, Jen.
If we're doing this right, we form our beliefs based on where the evidence leads, not on the fact that, I don't have anything to disprove this thing that I want to believe. So what you've done is you've put the belief out there, this is what you want to believe, and now you're looking for some justification for it. That's backwards. Okay? What you want to do is go from the evidence and go where the evidence leads.
I'm asking, I understand that mode of thinking, but my question still is, and I know, Matt, you're going to say you don't know my life, but just according to this belief, what do I gain? What do I gain by doing that?
What difference does it make what you gain?
Let me ask you something. How has believing in false things ever helped anyone?
Well, I don't know how it's helped anybody else, but if I can judge based on me, if it's giving me hope and happiness, that's helped me.
Well,
so if that's helping me, I find something else that can help me more.
Well, why would belief in something that you can't demonstrate to be true give you hope and happiness? I mean, what's hopeful about that?
Hello? Oh, damn, I thought you stumped him and then we just lost him.
Yeah,
Oh, well. Unfortunately, there's only like a minute left. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Jen, how you doing?
You got 30 seconds or so.
Hey, something real quick on Eric's call from Mesa, Arizona last week.
Sure.
Where he had supposedly 7 premises and he couldn't get past the first one because he kept wanting to put words in your mouth, Matt. Yeah. Tracy had pointed out that we'd never had a perfect nothing to investigate, so we don't know the properties of it, and so we can't make any claims about it. Mm-hmm. The same thing, though, can be said as far as putting the burden of evidence back on his assertion. If somebody's facing this type of an argument, have the person making the claim come up with a case where we have something coming from something. Because, as far as I know, we don't have any such thing.
Everything is that.
Yeah.
Every example.
No, we're talking about Big Bang creation of the universe kind of things.
Oh, sure. Saying that there's no other initial events to compare it to. Sure. Yeah, it's a change in scope. We got to let you go. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate the calls. We'll be back next week, same time, 4:30. Sorry that Bill didn't get through, but keep an eye on the calendar for upcoming events.